Welcome to Chapter 17, AfCFTA and the End of the Small Market, based on The Silent Creditor by Sam Prajnananda. We are focusing on reclaiming the internal engine of growth. First, a word about the GriotWave platform. We are a sovereign digital platform dedicated to creating, preserving, and distributing knowledge, music, and stories to empower communities. We transform timeless wisdom into practical tools. We begin with the island economy trap. African economic maps show trade arrows pointing almost exclusively outward. It is often easier to import from China than from a neighboring country due to fragmentation into 54 regulatory zones, 54 customs regimes, and 42 currencies. This fragmentation is the small market design. Small markets are weak, easily bullied, and forced to beg for market access from the north. This design structurally keeps nations aid dependent and prevents them from reaching the economies of scale needed to compete globally. The African Continental Free Trade Area, or AfCFTA, offers a systemic reset. It creates a single market of 1.3 billion people with a $3.4 trillion GDP. This debordering allows internal trade to flourish, making foreign aid evaporate as Africa becomes its own best customer. The mechanics of fragmentation rely on divide and rule. Post-colonial borders act as logistics checkpoints. This forces bilateralism, where countries undercut neighbors for small investment slices, preventing the formation of regional value chains. Current intra-African trade is only 15 to 18%. Every border adds a logistics tax of up to 40% to costs through delays, tariffs, and bribes. This is a border tax on innovation, which subsidizes foreign imports while strangling local entrepreneurs. AfCFTA is about scaling power via standardization, not just removing tariffs. It is poised to transform Africa from being merely a resource basement into a consumer powerhouse. In manufacturing, economies of scale are critical. A 10 million person market cannot sustain a car factory. Scaling requires markets of over 100 million to justify robotics and supply chain investment. Entrepreneurs can now target 1.3 billion continental consumers. Growth in internal trade is key to destroying aid leverage. Aid often acts as a diplomatic leash to force political alignment. Processing goods for neighbors provides a, quote, fiscal exit option from foreign moral tutelage, reducing the importance of development assistance. Consider the case study of a made-in-Africa supply chain. Cotton from Benin, petrochemicals and energy from Nigeria, garment labor in Ethiopia, and retail in South Africa. The entire value chain and its wealth stays within the continent. The rules of origin row battle is crucial. These rules determine if a product is African enough for zero tariffs. AfCFTA must enforce strict value-added requirements, around 40 to 50%, to prevent foreign Trojan horse strategies and forced technology transfer. One internal hurdle is the revenue loss fear. Governments fear losing import duties that fund budgets. However, this is penny-wise, pound-foolish, as corporate tax from a booming sector is far greater. Short-term gaps must be bridged by a long-term industrial vision. The infrastructure gap is internal hurdle 2. AfCFTA is only words without hard connectivity. This requires replacing colonial pit-to-port lines with extensive internal lateral networks. Internal hurdle 3 involves non-tariff barriers, or NTBs. The trust deficit leads to endless paperwork and informal tolls. NTBs can add a 50% bureaucratic cost, even if the tariff rate is 0%. In conclusion, the AfCFTA represents the death knell for the white man's burden. Integration creates a domestic gravity that attracts global capital on African terms. This shift transforms Africa into a market maker rather than an aid seeker. The key insight is scale is sovereignty. Fragmentation is a tool of control, while economies of scale are a tool of freedom. Internal markets are fundamentally more valuable than external aid packages that perpetuate dependency. Strategic action steps include the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, or PAPSS, allowing trade in local currencies to bypass USD/Euro dependency. Additionally, one-stop border posts will digitalize customs and eliminate human intermediaries and tolls. Another strategic action is the Infrastructure Harmonization Fund. This initiative will use trade revenue to fund lateral rails, emphasizing that we shouldn't wait for aid, but use trade profit to build the roads that make more trade possible. Please like this video to help others find this content. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a deep dive. Share this with a friend or colleague who needs to see this important information. Thank you for watching. Look for more content for further exploration of this topic.